Welcome. I'm Amy Taylor-Kabbaz, and this is the Happy Mama Movement podcast, a podcast dedicated to bringing the groundbreaking insights of matrescence to the world through interviews with leading experts, mamas, and those who are dedicated to making sure mothers are supported differently. These are our stories and your stories. Thank you for being a part of the matrescence movement. Welcome back to the podcast, everybody. Today, we're talking about a really, really important topic and conversation around motherhood, one that is often not spoken very much about, is hidden in a lot of shame and a lot of secrecy. We think matrescence is not very well understood in this world, but maternal ambivalence is probably even more less spoken about and less understood. My guest to speak about this is the incredible Dr. Margot Lowy. She's a psychotherapist specialising in mothering and holds a doctorate from the University of New South Wales in Sydney, Australia, right around the corner from where I live, where she researched maternal ambivalence for her new book, which is called Maternal Ambivalence, The Loving Moments and Bitter Truths of Motherhood. Margot, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure, Amy. I'm really looking forward to this. And as I said before, it's actually nice to hear an Aussie accent.
I know,
It's
because you're based
wonderful.
in New York now, aren't you?
Yes, I'm based here now. I've been based here for about 8 years since my youngest daughter finished school. She finished school in Australia. Been here for that long, and I've got my family here. So yeah, that's where it is.
Well,
That's where it's
welcome.
happening. Thank you.
Welcome to the
Thank you.
podcast.
Thank you.
I was thinking, because this topic is so under-discussed and still hidden in so much secrecy, if we could just start by explaining what maternal ambivalence is.
Yes, I will. Maternal ambivalence is our, as mothers, experience of all our feelings. And what I emphasize is the importance of our loving feelings and our bitter feelings. And often what we do as mothers is we neglect the difficult, dark moments. And what my work is about is encouraging mothers to think about which means that you are selfish and you're selfless, that you're loving and you're bitter, and that you have losses and you have gains, and that there's moments of contentment and moments of absolute despair, and it's all of these feelings. And the other very important part of my work is that the negative feelings or the dark feelings that we often neglect hold so much for us. That is the place where we really learn about ourselves and our children, and it's also the place that we can be genuine with our mothering. But because of the way mothering is, with the expectations that we have of ourselves and society has of us, it's really difficult to talk about these feelings. So my work is about making these feelings be okay to be talked about. Actually, even more than that, it's essential to talk about them. The trick here is to find a safe place to talk about them. And there is so much taboo about this. I think it's starting to be talked about a little bit more, but it's important that it's talked about in the right way and in a place, as I said before, that's safe. And we all have these moments. Every mother has to admit to it. And it's really, mothering is designed to face us with these issues and for us to work with them, not to ignore them, not to discard them, because this is really the whole mothering experience. So what I'm saying to all mums at any stage of their life, and especially I think when we are hands-on mothering and it's so full on, that we really need to be brave enough and courageous enough to look at and to think about all our feelings and to use them as part of our mothering and not to put them aside. And the dark feelings are transformative.
I totally agree with that. I have to say, though, Margot, I've been doing this work for more than a decade. And when I heard of the term maternal ambivalence many years ago, I thought it meant ambivalent about being a mum in the sense of take it or leave it, that you don't fall madly in love with your baby or your
Yeah,
child, that you have a bit
right.
of a flatness around it. I don't know if that's the right way to describe it, but I thought it meant ambivalence as in, whatever. But that's not what you're referring to
I'm
here.
really glad you brought that up, Amy, because one of one of maternal the word ambivalence gets very confusing. And actually, ambivalence itself is really misunderstood. And often people confuse it with mixed feelings or it's very negative. But in and other people confuse it with indifference, which I think is kind of what you were getting at. But indifference is, and probably because the words are the same length, people confuse it. But indifference is something totally different. Indifference is a cutting off. It's a not caring. And that is something totally different from what ambivalence is. Ambivalence is connecting. It's connecting with each of your feelings and and or um, and really trying to understand all of them. And it's a powerful concept. Whereas indifference is a cutting off. It's when you talk, it's a little bit of a freezing, but it's much more than that. It's a cutting. And this is something that as mothers, we probably want to do sometimes, but I really caution about that. I caution for mothers to stay with their feelings, as difficult as it is, maybe to count to 10, but to re engage with them because this is such an important part of relationships and of mothering. And and when we do not connect with our feelings, by the way, our kids pick it up like that.
Yeah.
They've got this antenna, and they know if you try and hide something, you know that, and they pick it up when you're not being when you're not being genuine, or you're trying to when you're trying to put something away. And they are so good at gauging our feelings exactly. So I'm trying to use this taboo idea of ambivalence, and I'm trying to rework it into something that is actually not only positive, but it's essential to understanding ourselves and understanding our children. And what I haven't done is I just want to give you an example of ambivalence.
Yes, please.
Okay, so you're at. I'll use Australian language. I'll use it my Australian language instead of the American one. Okay, we're at the shopping centre with our three kids. It's busy, and we've got a lot of things to do, and we've got a couple of kids, three kids with us, and we say, just hold on there, don't move. I'm checking the diary. I'm check where we've got to go. So we're looking at our diary, and we look up, and one of our kids has run away. Now, all of us as mothers have had some iteration of this, whether it's at the beach or when you lose sight of your child, whether it's at the park, whatever. So, well, at this moment, when you can't find your child, you just absolutely are filled with terror. And at that point, you're like thinking, my life is over at this point. It's never going to be the same again. If something's happened to my child, if someone's taken the child, if the child's run away, if something's happened, my life's it's just terrible. We can't even imagine
Mm.
what that would mean. And at the same time, we're kind of thinking that little so and so, how dare he or she? Just terrible. And at the same time, we're totally paralyzed. And 1 minute feels like an hour. We don't know whether to cry, to call, scream. We don't know. All we're doing is we're holding on dearly to the other children to make sure they're not moving. and we're kind of in this state of terror when we see our child skipping happily down the hallway with a friend. So at this point, you kind of are so relieved. You hug that child and you have what I called a melting moment when all your fears, all your feelings about what that little so and so did, they melt and you have this overwhelming feeling of love. That's that feeling of maternal ambivalence. And and the so what I'm saying is these difficult, dark, disturbing feelings renew our love. And so we need to know about these feelings. We can't let them aside. We need to understand them because that's what our mothering is. And we have, especially when we're hands on mothering, many instances of these every day. When
Mm.
we're a new mother and we've got a newborn and they're up all night and you just exhausted, you don't know how you're going to get up, and then you open up, you feel into the child's mouth and a tooth's there, and then you feel terrible because you've been so critical of the child and why is he kept or she kept me awake, and then you're overjoyed because of pride, and then the child gives you a little smile. I mean, there's
Yes.
so many of these incidences every day. And
Yes.
so this is what my work is about, to try and open this up for discussion, and to know that we all have these feelings,
Mm.
and this is part of the maternal language that's not talked about, it's not discussed, and it's so important, and that's what I do. That's what I
Mm.
want to do. I want to open it up. And as a grandmother, and my kids are much older now, I've had the time and space to really think about my own mothering and to think about the what I've done wrong, what I've done right, and to try and understand it. And that's why I wrote this book. I also wrote a PhD on maternal ambivalence, and I also wrote an academic book. But this book is really for all of us to
Mm.
look at, and it's also for our partners, our support people, our mothers, whatever. It's to understand what it's like for us. And I kind of, when I think about a few of the I suppose the mottos that I use to inform my work, well, some of them are: mothering is an experience of making mistakes and repairing them. Making mistakes and repairing them. And this is something I would have loved to know before I became a mother, because I actually thought that would be a such a wonderful, great experience of total union the whole time, and that my child would do what I said. That's not what it's like. So had I known that, it would have been great. And I also look at mothering as a messy, interrupted experience. And that's what it is. And we all know that, but we don't hear it.
Mm.
And
Yes.
also, all mums try their best. I deeply believe that. And we make it up as we go along.
Mm. That's it. I love that example you gave of the shopping center. And, like you said, we've all had those moments. And when you were saying you then see the child, skipping along because they noticed someone from their school or something and they just got totally distracted and off they went. And then you hug them and you're overwhelmed with this love, this melting moment again. It's also at that time, what came to mind then for me as well is that these changes between extreme emotions are so quick that you are melting into them, and then a nanosecond later you want to scream at them about what they've just done and what they've put you through and their siblings through. And so this is the hardest part of this maternal ambivalence from my personal experience, is how fast our emotions can go from 100% joy to 100% anger to sadness to guilt. It is microseconds between those emotions, isn't it?
It is amazing. And you're actually the first person on many podcasts that actually has pointed that out. And that's why I love podcasts, speaking to different people, because everyone gets something different.
Mm.
And what you've zoomed in on for me, thank you very much, is the other part of mothering is that we need to flow with it.
Mm.
And it's such a difficult thing, especially for new mums or mums with school age children. We When you've got school age children, or you're new, you've got a routine that
Mm.
you've got to stick to, and
Mhm.
it's so hard to flow with them. But in fact, if we don't flow with it, and if we don't allow ourselves just to be a little easier on ourselves, we become rigid, and that makes us judgmental of ourselves and of our children. It doesn't do us any
Mm.
favors. I know you were talking about the changes in nanoseconds, and that's exactly right. And that's what happens. And that's what's amazing. And when I think about messy, interrupted, and loving experiences, that's really what you're saying. It's interrupted, and your thoughts, your feelings, your experiences are interrupted all the time.
Mm.
But we don't get told that when we become mums. And then so we don't have the right platform to
No.
jump from. Because if we knew that, then it would make it, yeah, that's right. And then we would also give ourselves permission to say that it's messy and
Mm.
interrupted and loving. And some days it's just a S fight.
It
Like
is.
that's what it is, and
Mm.
that's what it's meant to be, and
Mm.
that's what mothering is designed for. And then it would allow us to be easier on ourselves, rather than thinking that we're meant to be this um, selfless 24/7 mother all the time, which does not exist, because
Mm.
something's going to give somewhere. And
Mm.
we all know that.
You speak beautifully about it almost being a dance between good enough and not good enough. I
Hmm.
love the word, the way you say dance between it, because that's again, it's sort of like this constant flow of emotions within us.
Yes. Yes.
And the other thing that I think is really relevant to this podcast and what we talk about in this space all the time is that so much of these split feelings, messy, interrupted emotions and moments can also come from these two separate identities we have of being a mother and also being a person. And traditionally, the way that we've been told and being taught of the stereotype of the perfect mother is that we are always a mother, and that should always come first. We
Hmm.
should always respond as the mother first, not the overwhelmed, stressed woman who's worried about how to pay the mortgage next month or is worried about. We have to be this mother identity above all. And again, that's just not possible. But
Oh,
when we don't know that, that's where the judgment and the shame and the guilt come from.
yes. Yeah. You described that really, really, really well. I
Because
mean,
I'm living it still every single day,
yes,
Margot. I
yes,
said before we hit record, it's always
yes,
interesting to me when these podcasts land in my calendar because this is a conversation I definitely need today. So
yeah.
I'm
Well,
living and breathing it still.
right. And I think part of that well, first of all, there's something called a maternal ideal, which we're
Mhm.
talking about, is that we set our bar for ourselves so high. And that's because we collude with that, by the way, because
Yes.
we want to be perfect. And it never ceases to surprise me how we know we can't be perfect. We know that it's not genuine. We know that it's not the way that you want to be a mother, because we're not a machine, we're a person, but we always try and be perfect.
Yeah.
And so, what a lot of my work is about bringing that bar down and being ordinary and being enough. And that's really what our children want.
Mm.
And what you also point out is the stresses that we have as mothers. And and how do we join this split? Because ambivalence is the opposite. It's not splitting, it's bringing everything together. It's the and. So how do we manage being a person and being a mother? And it's so important that we give ourselves permission to be a person as well. And that is where making mistakes and repairing them comes in, because that's how it is. And but as a mother, you kind of in the spotlight of of your children's they mirror you and they
Yes.
trigger you, and they're going to tell you what they think. And i and i think that for me, that is a really actually valuable part of ambivalence, because if we can hear what our children say to us, and if we can value it, and if we can not get offended, and if we can stay adult, we can actually take that in, and this is how we also learn. But if we're not honest with ourselves and our children, they're not going to tell us this, they're not going to give us the feedback. I often talk about I've got 17 years between my oldest and my youngest child. I've
Wow.
got my oldest son is nearly 45. Then I've got another son who's 35. I had secondary infertility in between those two.
Wow.
And then I had my third one who's a daughter when I was 41.
Wow.
And what I've discovered in doing all this work, I've looked back on my own experiences, and I think with my boys, I was too scared and too frightened to even think about any kind of dark feelings with them. Everything was absolutely fine, and I wouldn't go there. When I had my daughter, it was a totally different story. She was not going to I was not going to get away with anything. And she used to tell me, and I was like, but I had to listen to her. And that's when I really learned to flow with
Mm,
my mothering, and
mm,
that I really learned from her that I could tolerate those dark feelings. And that was part of mothering. And that was such a gift for me, and an understanding that the rigidity does not help. And we need to be able to flow. And we also, I think I did used to laugh with my first two children, but with my third one, it was like it was all the time. I just First of all, I was much older. I was 41. I had my first one when I was 23, so I was
wow.
almost like the grandmother. And it was just I she just made me laugh.
Mm,
And it was just such a it was a forgiving experience for me. And I think that's another word that I use a lot, because we need to forgive ourselves, we need to forgive our children, and it's a flowing word.
mm.
It's so important.
When you talk about repair, and we hear a lot about this in sort of modern parenting advice
Mhm.
around, rupture and repair when we have moments with our children. But my understanding of the way you talk about repair is, I hope I've got this right, it's a repair with yourself first.
Yes.
It's
Yes.
it's a repair within, and an understanding, a forgiveness, a flowing, an allowing of these different emotions.
Yes.
Do you still advocate for us then to talk to them about these
Okay. Yeah.
moments, and how do we navigate that?
Right. Okay. First of all, when there is a lot of talk about rupture. And as you
Mm,
say, I don't look at it as rupture. I
mm,
look at it as flowing. You're failing, you make a failure, and then you repair it. It's all flowing. It's not a rupture, reminds me a little bit of
mm.
an indifference, of a cutting. It's not like
Yes.
that. It's a flowing. But obviously, sometimes we we try and remain adult in the situation, and sometimes it's very hard, and sometimes we need to count to 10. We need time out.
Mhm,
And this goes back to, what do we talk to our children about?
mhm.
And how, and we all know that's age appropriate, but
Yeah.
I think it's really important for the mother to be honest and to say, listen, I need time to myself. I need 10 seconds. And even though that will probably mean that they're going to want you more and follow you into the bathroom before you close the door, but you actually, the mother actually is able, that is so important, a time to breathe through. And the and as far as explaining things to one's child, I mean, one has to be very age appropriate and also relationship appropriate,
Mm.
because I think it depends on the relationship that you've had with that child and how open you've been with that child. But I think what we always need to be aware of is your child knows.
Yeah.
They pick up when something's not right. So it's really important to say, look, mum's having a hard day or it's been difficult, just to acknowledge it. And, if you're in a kind of if you're with a teenager maybe and you wanna talk a little bit about yourself, then that's all right. And I think every case is different, but I
Yeah.
think really the thing is to know that they know that things that you're having a hard time and to be honest about it.
Yeah. I've worked with many women over the last decade or so who, now that they're sort of coming to this space of reflection and seeing the pressure they've put on themselves around being the perfect mother, or really starting to do that inner work, they look back at how they used to parent and can have a level of forgiveness and grace towards themselves, but find it really difficult, sometimes almost get stuck in
Mm.
this. I don't even know how to describe it, Margot, like a longing, a desire of, I wish I had done this differently.
Yeah.
And in a lot of the coaching I've done over the years and in the interviews and space holding, that can be really a source of, they get stuck there. It's, yeah, I get that I didn't know any better, and I get that it was stressful, and I rah, 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 but I really, really wish I had done it
Yeah.
differently. Now that your two sons are so much older and you've done all of this work, how have you come to a place of forgiveness for yourself
Okay.
in the way that you used to do it? And what do you say to women who get what we're talking about in theory, but there's still that inner voice? I call it the inner mean mama, that inner voice that says, yeah, but you stuffed that up. You really
Yeah.
shouldn't have done that.
Okay. Okay. First of all, we all have those feelings. I don't think that makes anyone feel necessarily better, but every
It's
single
good to
mother,
acknowledge. Yeah.
yeah, has regrets about what they've done. That's what makes one a mother. If a mother hasn't, then I don't think that she's been in the dirt of mothering, in the
Mm,
messiness of mothering.
mm.
That's the first thing, because any mother that's really been in the mess has definitely had those experiences.
Yeah,
When
thank you
you
for
were
saying that.
talking, it reminded me of the difference between guilt and shame. And what I think that it's such an important distinction,
Mm,
because I think that guilt is about something that we've done that we're ashamed of, or that we don't, I won't use that word ashamed yet, something that we've done that we regret,
mm,
that's really terrible, and that we can't that it's not there all the time, but
mm.
it comes back to bite us when we're triggered. And then we're thinking, how could I have done that? That's just, and we've all had these. That's terrible. I wish I hadn't done it, but I've done it. Okay. So, in a sense, it's accepting that. That's the first step, to accept it and to know that we can't change it.
Mm,
And, it's going to come back, and we've got to live with that.
mm,
But there is a bit of a flow there, because it's like, okay, we've done that. I feel terrible about it. It was awful. I did the wrong thing, but okay, I can't change it.
mm,
Now that's different from shame. And
mm.
in my book, I have a story about a woman who feels ashamed. And I tell the story about a woman that she feels very stuck because, for example, she's got a toddler, and the example is, if her daughter didn't eat properly that day, she's not a good mother. If the daughter was had a great day, she felt good about herself. And she kind of realized that she was stuck, and she actually read into it a little bit. And what she realized is that she was mothering the same way that she'd been mothered. And so I tell this, and she thinks about this, and then she makes the connection. And so she's at the park with her daughter. I love the park. I use that all the time. And she's swinging her daughter on the swing. And the mother's there with her. Her mother is there with her, and they spend a lot of time together. And her mother says to her, "Oh, you swing her too high. She's going to fall off. Something's going to happen." And obviously, she will get into that situation. And then suddenly, the young mother says, "Mum," she stops the mother. She says, "Mum, you've had your turn mothering me. You've done a great job. I love you, but now it's my turn to mother the way that I want to mother." And she understands that what she's done is she's linked herself with how she's been mothered, which is this feeling of shame. And
Mm.
she's somehow managed to release herself. So now she said to her mother, "It's now my responsibility to bring my daughter up the way that I need to. I'll make mistakes, I'll fail, but I'll fix them up. It's actually your job just to enjoy your granddaughter."
Wow.
And okay, it sounds a bit simplistic, but it was like a moment, like a light bulb moment. So I think with that's a really important way of thinking about it, because I think that we hold on to this shame instead of seeing it as part of mothering and in moving it into a guilt. We
Mm.
all have guilt, but not to make it shame,
Mm.
not to make it part of what we are. It's an incident, it's a moment, we don't like it, it's horrible, it's terrible, it comes back to bite us, we all have it, but it also belongs in a space. It's not all of us.
Yeah.
All of
Doesn't
those
define
mothers, yeah,
us.
it doesn't define us. That's exactly right.
Mm.
And I would probably say to these mothers, yeah, we have those moments, but we have other moments when we actually did the good things. But
Mm.
it's really hard
Mm.
because we're hard on ourselves. So let's see it as a whole, as
Yeah.
the end.
Margot, I've been doing this for so long. I think we're over 300 episodes now on the podcast. And before that, I had another podcast on this. I've literally been doing this for so long. And it still brings emotion to me when I think about, for myself as well, but also the thousands of women's voices that I've heard over the years, of just how much we beat ourselves up.
Yeah,
It
we do.
really, and I know that that's not a profound question. It's more just a statement that even after all these years of talking about it, I still have moments thinking, gosh, we just think we are doing such a bad job if we don't do it perfectly every
That's right.
single day. And it breaks my heart because I
Yeah.
do it to myself too.
Yes.
And I'm like literally here to teach and talk about it.
Yes. Mm.
It's just mind blowing how much we still get stuck in it.
Yeah. We're very hard on ourselves. We
Mm.
don't forgive ourselves, and we don't give ourselves a pat on the back when we do something that is really um, that is amazing, because it is amazing when we manage with all the mess of our lives, especially with hands-on mothering, when we do
Mm.
something amazing. And just quickly, I have another story, which is a good one in the book, of a mother getting ready for school. You know, that before school time,
Yeah,
that
oh, yeah.
everything, and for this mother, everything was going smoothly. That her oldest son had a project, and there was a second daughter and the baby, and they were all sitting down having breakfast. And the middle child, the daughter, pours spills milk all over the project that the older brother's been working at for 3 weeks. So there's havoc. And somehow this mother manages to hold herself together. She had a plan for the day. She was kind of daydreaming with giving the breakfast and doing that. And she was saying, I'm going to drop them at school. Then I'm going to take the baby and do some chores. I'll get him into bed by 12, and then I can do my Zoom, and everything's going to be fine. Crash. So somehow she manages to clean off the project. change her daughter who's got milk all over her and get the 3 kids into the car. And when they're in the car, she actually manages to tell them the story about when milk was dropped all over her jeans and they were laughing about this, and she manages to hold it together.
Mm.
She drops the kids off to school and then she's thinking, if it doesn't work, if I don't do my Zoom, okay, that's what it is. But then she gets them to school and it's like, phew, that feeling of relief. And what she does is she thinks back to last week when she had a similar thing happening and it was a disaster and there was screaming and crying and carrying on. But she learned, and she learned because of the failure and the repair. And she patted herself on the back. And so this is the story. That's why I'm telling this story, because it incorporates so much of what we're talking about and what you've said. She manages to pat herself on the back. She manages to be fluid and to know, okay, if she doesn't get everything done, then it's actually okay. And she manages to laugh a little bit and to remain adult. And that's the hardest part.
Mm.
And that's a great story. And even when we go back to the other part of the other incident that we were talking about, how we kind of go over and over when we've made a mistake. And what she did was she learnt by the mistake. She still had that terrible feeling about what happened last week, but she managed to learn from
Yeah.
that. So
Yeah.
it's actually really interesting that you brought those two together,
Mm.
because that's our lessons. That's what we learn.
I love that story. Again, that nearly brought tears to my eyes because, my goodness, we've all had those mornings. And one week we totally lose it and feel terribly guilty afterwards. And then the next week we're like, oh, nailed that.
I did
And
it.
that's it. And that's the gift of maternal ambivalence, the way
That's
that
the
you're
gift.
bringing it to the world. The
That's
gift is
exactly it.
that we don't
Yes.
get it right. We're human beings. We mess it up. But if we can forgive ourselves, see it in that light, and then maybe the next week we'll do it
Yes.
better, we'll do it
That's right.
differently. That's
That's
what
right.
this gift is
Yeah.
really all about.
It is.
Mm.
It is a gift.
Yeah. Margot, I could talk to you for hours and hours. I feel like we need to do part 2. And if you're ever in Sydney, please come and we'll sit and have coffee and talk for hours as well.
Yes.
There's so much in this book for everybody who's listening, whether you've still got little ones or, like me, deep in the throes of teenage years, or even further down the path. I think that this is a gift for everybody to really begin to see themselves through this light.
Yes. And it doesn't, mothering never finishes. I've got three adult children, and you keep making mistakes and you keep repairing them, and it is different, but it's really very much the same as well.
Yeah. Thank you so much. All the
Thank you.
details about how people can read your book will be on
Yes.
the show notes for the podcast. Thank
Okay,
you
great.
again.
Great.
Wonderful conversation.
Okay.
Thanks, Margot.
Thank you so much.